gentlemen, please welcome.
And we are live once again for another exciting edition of the MCW Cast, and a live edition at that, right here at the Infield Sports Center, wrapping up Baltimore Select Fest 3, and our special guest for this edition of the cast, the man right next to me right now, the big LG, Doc Gallows.
It is great to be here. It's great to be at Maryland Championship Wrestling. It's great to be a Maryland native, seeing wrestling thrive in Maryland. And it's great to correct my co-host that we're just wrapping up Baltimore Celebrity Fest 2, and you guys announced number 3. I'll let you plug it right now. To my right, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jennings.
I would love to plug it, but I don't have the date because it's sad.
Have the date. Never mind. I watched the whole damn thing.
It's okay because I started us off with a botch, so I'm going to recover right now. It's going to be February the 6th, 2022.
Here we go.
And did he have a building? I know Chad was talking about it, but he have a building secured?
We don't have a building just yet, but after the success of this one, I bet you he's going to be looking for a bigger building to harness all of the wrestling pandemonium that was Celeb Fest 2.
And I know he wanted to keep it in the Anne Arundel County area too, so right in the same vicinity.
Yeah.
He was talking about.
Well, anyway, I'm Larry Legend, and of course we have the heart of MCW, the lovely Tara down there on the end.
Hello, everyone.
Tara.
And I'm Dan McDevitt, MCW promoter. And the big LG was actually a fan
I was.
of MCW before you broke in the. Didn't you come to the show?
Michael's 8th
That's
Avenue.
right.
Yeah. No, I'm a big supporter. I broke in so young and I was so green, I was never good enough to get on an MCW card until years later. But as a kid, we used to drive down here and see the shows, and I was very familiar with the Romeo Valentinos and all the brothers from that era that came through Maryland. And, talking about that, think about here today, all the people, coming through this state, a lot of them through you. You got Rich Swan here, you got Mickey James here, who started with you, Alexis Lurie when she switched to your school.
Yeah.
So Maryland's like a sleeper state. You don't realize how many people have come out of here. There's quite a few. There's a lot. And the first time I ever saw you wrestle was from Dick Karakoff's NWL. It was the first independent show I'd ever been to, I believe early 1995. And I saw Corporal Punishment on that show.
That Dick was he was a good guy, man.
Tricky Dick.
He's like one of my favorite promoters that I ever wrestled for. It's so many stories I got him. Just about Dick was like, he was such an honest guy.
Yes.
He was such an honest guy. I'll never forget. This Clear Springs High School. Do you remember that show?
I do.
When Jake Roberts didn't show up, and he came out and just basically. It just goes into a sermon about Jake finding his demons, and I've never seen anything like it. How it recovered. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. What the particulars of what happened next?
He had like 1,000 tickets sold.
Yes, it was
and the place was packed. And Jake Roberts was not too far off the TV, so he was a huge star, really hot.
Yeah.
And it's the people start booing as he says he's not going to be there, but then he tells the people, but it's okay because he's found Jesus Christ. And he's going to be saved, and then the building starts roaring.
What a save! What a literal save from the heavens!
And he's like, praise Jesus in Jesus' name, and people are like,
and also no refunds.
And God Bushwhacker Luke. And it was fine.
He will lick your head for $5 American.
And I was like, how did that happen? How did he do that?
That's hilarious.
But that was good.
I remember being on the show as a kid, and Dick, I was all excited to see Jimmy Superfly Snoopy. And Dick goes, coming down the aisle from the Fuji Islands, Jimmy, Superstar, Snook. It's not it at all, Dick. From the Fuji Islands.
Yeah, he was a good dude.
Yeah, very much. The whole family was so wholesome. Like Dick's wife was my cheerleading coach. She was my cafeteria lunch lady. Yeah, I'm from Hagerstown.
That's cool.
And Neil Superior was one of my best friends. We went to college together. We worked out together. We lived down the street from each other my whole life. So I've known that family forever.
I was always curious about Neil Superior because I saw him once or twice, and then all that tragic stuff happened with him. Yeah.
He was great. He and I actually both went to community college and got pharmacy technician certificates.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and we were working at the same pharmacy at the time. Like he was really trying to think about the next step of his life. You know, like once wrestling, starts to phase out a little bit, getting older or whatever. He was trying to think of a career to do afterwards, and we both were pursuing it together. But yeah, just a great family.
So
Yeah.
did you train there?
No, everybody thinks I trained there. I didn't train there. I would go. I had two buddies that graduated high school a few years ahead of me, and they trained there. And they would go do the Tuesday nights. A little known secret about me was nobody ever trained. I was playing college at Fairmont State in West Virginia, and I had a small independent there called Mason-Dixon Wrestling. And I just started hanging around asking to help set the ring up and stuff. I mean, it was a really small promotion. We didn't have a lot of great guys in there. And I was so damn big, they just gave me a mask and some tights. And like night 2, I was in the Battle Royal. And I think we set the ring up for 1 week. And I'm 18-year-old me and like this 42-year-old guy named Luscious Lance who was pursuing pro wrestling during his midlife crisis. Him and I went in there and really taught each other the ropes, giving each other diamond cutters and stuff like that. So that was my formal training. So 3 years later, when I got to WWE, they're like, "Wow, we didn't teach you the basics." Yeah, no, we're doing.
That's wild. So you did you do a lot of the interviews?
I did a ton. I did a ton of it, like. Not being disrespectful, the joke back then was I wasn't like an indie guy, I was a shindy guy.
Right.
Like I would go deep down into West Virginia and like wrestle in burn out furniture stores and stuff. But I mean 2 or 3 nights a week you could wrestle there. Drive to Tennessee, drive to North Carolina with the fake Vader, Big Slam Vader.
Big Slam, oh yeah.
So that was Big Slam would rent the ring and wrestle in the main event. I would be the heel and do the Big Slam match. So stuff like that.
One of my favorite Big Slam, there was me and Axel and all were wrestling for Cue Ball down in LA, Virginia.
What was that called? That building, Cue Ball?
Secret Cove?
Yeah, Secret Cove. I heard a lot of Cue Ball. I moved to New Jersey for a while under the tutelage of Big Slam and Cue Ball. It wasn't a great life decision, but I saw a lot of brother stuff going on when I was there.
Yeah, so Cue Ball, so he hooked us up with the promoter down there, and they had like 1,000 people at this school, and it was in the late 90s, and wrestling's hot, and the poster said Rhodes versus Vader.
Tell me it was like Terry Rhodes versus Big Slammers.
That's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was. And I remember being on the show, and just they never like. When they came out, you could tell the people were like, "This isn't what we paid for." Because at the time,
and Slam used to get so mad about it too.
Oh yeah,
you're not him. So it's cool. I called Leon's wife. She said I could do the gimmick. I'm 19. I know that's a lie.
It's very clear that the people that are here were not expecting Terry Rhodes versus Big Slam Vader. They were clearly expecting Vader versus Dustin Rhodes.
Right. Only in pro wrestling do things like this continue to happen. Like when I started in West Virginia, they were like, "This is Playboy Buddy Rose," and I'm like, "No, it's not." Playboy Buddy Rose was 100 pounds heavier, and he's dead. Right. And they're like, "Well, don't say that you don't know it's him." And I'm like, "You guys just pretend like it is so we can do this." And I was like, "Well, he's really helping us out, getting sponsors and stuff." And I'm like, wow. And then I remember when I got released from WWE the first time, I go to a show in North Carolina, it's a big show. They go, Batista's going to be here. Batista and then Luke Gallows. Oh boy, here we go. Well, they did not get Batista, they got Jay Batista. He's a very nice guy, but he looks like if you just like poked Batista with a needle and he went, like when you deflate a whoopee cushion, that was the Batista that we were given. It wasn't the greatest Batista bone I've ever seen, but hey.
It's amazing. It's stuff like that is so cheap that even being when I was younger in the business and you're just excited to be a part of it, you go, man, this is so cheap that I can't even believe someone's actually going to do this.
And I can't believe that they'll do it and like face people and go, no, it's me.
Yeah.
No. There's so
like how many Doink the Clowns have there been?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
you could get away with it. My first indie show.
Well, sure you could get away with it.
Doink Star? Right? That was it. I remember Question Assassin number 2, Bob Star, and Doink the Clown wrestling for Tricky Dick one night.
Brian Holhouse, who's around here somewhere, who drives a lot of the guys to the shows, guys and girls to the shows, and he does timekeeping for us. He was with Tom Brandy. This is a guy that has never had, he's been around, never had a single day training, and Tom Brandy, I think it was like Tom Brandy had the Doink outfit.
And Mike Fuller wouldn't wear it, so.
Well, but like Mike Fuller or whatever was, the Doink that he had, I guess, wasn't able to go.
He wasn't up to Doink standards.
So it's like 1,000 people.
Whoopee cushion.
Yeah, 1,000 people at a fair show, and he was getting a couple $100 from the promoter for Doink. So he tells Brian, bro,
you're Doink.
You're Doink. You know, and Brian had one professional match, probably the worst match in the history
This
of
is
wrestling.
an amazingly great story.
And you gotta ask him about it. And he went out in front of 1,000 people and wrestled
Did
in
Doink.
Pennsylvania.
That's
Did
awesome.
Doink.
I'll tell you,
And that's what he did. His best story about it is when he was walking to the back and the people, he said that he's like, there was these kids and ladies like venomously like,
you're not
these people wanted to, like, they were just furious.
Here's one you'll like. I'm under the tutelage of Slam and Cuba. I've been living in Jersey. So Tom Brandy's running outside of Philadelphia, whatever town he's from there. And again, it's a big Catholic high school. They got Snuka, they got Tito Santana. It's packed. Tom's there. Of course, Tom's doing South Sincere and the Patriot.
Yeah.
So he comes up and he's like, hey kid, I gotta sort this money out on the paydays, but I can't miss out on the Polaroids for the Patriot. So guess who puts on the Patriot tights, boots, jackets, mask? Because I'm all tan and oily, you know what I mean? So like, he's like, just keep the jacket on so it's in the tat. I'm like, yeah, cool. What do I say and do? He's like, don't worry, I got someone up there working for you. But it's in-ring pictures. So it's going okay. I'm not really saying much. I'm just doing things I've seen Tom do. And this woman comes up. She's like, Tom, I haven't seen you since high school. And 19-year-old me's like, So it ended like after I don't respond to anything she says, and the kid gets the picture. Like it went from Tom, I haven't seen you in high school. You mother effing son of a blah blah blah. I came back. I was like, Tom, you saw a lot of pictures. There's a very angry woman out there, and I don't know what to do about it. It's like, you should have smartened her up, brother. You should have smartened me up. I don't know what I'm doing.
That's where a lot of this like comes from some of the other characters.
Oh, of course, because I came up around wrestling like that. Like I remember being on a show with Buddy Landell in Cherokee, North Carolina. I was so pumped to meet Buddy Landell. And the first thing I looked at Big Sam and said, why is he asleep standing up? Kid, he took too many pills. I was like, oh, sweet. So we're signing autographs at the flea market. Big line for Big Slam and Buddy Bill at the time, as you can imagine. We're in the ring, and it's on this Indian, like Native American reservation. We're wrestling them, we're getting beat on. I'm laying down, reaching for the hot tag. It's outdoors, and we see Buddy Landell grab the money box and start slamming. Slam goes, the hell with the match, kid, let's go! So I just roll out of the ring off of this full cell where I'm reaching for the tag. We're chasing Buddy Landell. He gets in the car. We do this high-speed chase and get it to the McDonald's where we originally met him at. And Slam, you remember how big Slam really was. He's a 450-pound brother. And he's chasing Buddy Landell. Buddy Landell's scooting over tables and stuff. And he goes, you got me, okay? I'll pay you guys. Just don't say where you saw him. I'm like, you're 2 miles from the show at the only McDonald's in Cherokee, North Carolina. You gonna hide out in here?
He snatched the box for the door.
He snatched the box for the door. But we ended up getting, I got my $20 or whatever. Slam got whatever he was getting. He did get it, but yes.
Wow, what a story.
Cue ball. One of my favorite cue ball stories is you know how he didn't have a lot of like personality in the ring, you know, and facial expressions and stuff like that.
Where was the character out of it?
We're in Cape Hatteras, North Carolina for a show he was putting on, and he was wrestling Earl the Pearl.
Yes, I remember.
So there's some
Rambling Wretch.
There's some drunk guy the whole show, and the guy's getting more and more drunk, and Cue Ball's telling us like, watch, I'm gonna get this guy fired. And he's telling us in the back like, I'm gonna get this guy fired up. I'm gonna bury this guy. So he does, and he buries him. He's dropping all these like metal maniac jokes on him, right? And they're talking about
Chubby Dubby.
Yeah. And at one point, Cue Ball has Earl the Pearl in a camel clutch, and he's yelling at the guy, saying, you know, tell him like, you ain't gonna do nothing. You're assistant. So that dude, this drunk guy, gets up, gets in the ring, and we're watching like.
Is he still in the camel clutch?
Still in the camel clutch, and Q-Ball's talking to him, and we're like watching in the back like,
you gotta get out here trying to submit this guy.
Slaps the shit out of Q-Ball. Right in the face.
Gets buy that footage if he's still
gets out of the ring and sits down in the front row.
Nobody does anything?
Nobody does anything, and Q-Ball like never flinched. Just sat there in the camel clutch with him. That is this guy. You know,
what an underrated story.
We're dying in the back. It's one of those things where like we're all watching and we have
just ate the slap.
He just ate the slap. Ate the slap. Didn't get back. But then you know what I mean? You know what I mean? The guy totally punked him.
Dumb face.
Totally punked him. And he gets back in the back and then he's like, hey, is somebody going to get that guy out of here? We're like, no, we're crying.
Surely you're not going to do it, Q.
Like, because the guy just totally punked. He has like my favorite Q-Ball story.
That's pretty amazingly awesome.
Yeah, he's something else, man. He's something else.
Yeah.
So you drew on a lot of your experiences coming up through the ranks of pro wrestling for your characters. The first time I ever saw you was when it was the Festus deal.
Festus.
Where'd that come from? You know,
I had a gimmick called the freaking bacon that they really liked, and I had this tarantula, and I would beat the guy, and I had face paint, crazy hair, and do all this. And I would beat my opponent, and I dropped the tarantula on them, and they loved it. And so we figured out that you couldn't get a tame tarantula in the city, and at the time you couldn't travel and fly with the tarantula. So it killed the gimmick. So I was like, oh no, I have to do it now. And at the time they had Henry Godwin and coming to tag with Terry Gordy's son, who later becomes Jesse. They were like the new Godwins or something. And then Henry, who was an awesome guy, he had like some personal issues that leave the company, so they still wanted these new Godwins. So they tried out all these guys to be the Hillbilly, and I was like, I could do that. So I just watched like the Redneck Comedy Tour, all the ones that I could like find on DVD, and I went in and did a couple promos. And okay, so we're gonna debut as like pig farming hillbillies, Jesse and Festus. And we were in the ring, talking about what we're gonna do on our debut on SmackDown, and Vince wants to see his office. It was like 20 minutes before doors, and I was like, I mean, are we getting fired before we even started? This sucks.
Yeah.
So we go in, and like Vince sits us down. He's like, we're not gonna have any more pig farmers. I don't farm their pig. Yes, sir. What is it? He looks at me. He's like, can you do this? And he just sticks his tongue out at me, and I go, I think so, sir. 23 years old. I stick my tongue out. It's not like that, like this. So Vince and I are just sitting for 5 minutes, sticking our tongues out at each other, back and forth. And Ray Gordy's like, eyes are this big. I think that's it. You're gonna be in a catatonic state at all times until the bell rings. You'll go crazy in your rage. Then the bell ring again, you'll return to a catatonic state. I knew a guy in high school like that. I'm like, that's a picture.
What kind of high school did you go
about
to?
somebody, and I'm part of it. But then he looks at Gordy and he's like, you, what's your favorite color? And Ray hasn't said anything the whole meeting. He goes, yellow? And he goes, all right, buy a yellow singlet. You'll be his handler. We'll start next week. And we're like, that's how it happened. So that's how I became Festus.
That's fun.
Yeah, that's how stuff like that happens. It was just whatever was in his mind that day.
Yeah.
It created a gimmick, which I bought my first house off of, and like, on TV.
Right, because you guys were there for, you were there for a little bit.
Yeah, it was like, Festus was like 2 years, and then I went home for 6 months and dropped some weight and did straight edge stuff with fun.
Right. And then how long was that? How long was that straight edge stuff?
So that was only like a year and a half, maybe. It wasn't a very long time.
2007. 2007.
2007 was Festus. 2009
yeah, and then
was straight edge
2009
stuff.
straight edge.
Before that, I was the fake Kane, and that gave me legs.
That's actually, I was going to ask you about that, but
I
we.
was 22 when I did that. I was nervous. SHIT.
Was that your first thing there?
That was my first TV stuff. Was doing that.
oh, so actually I saw you as the fake Kane. Just didn't know it was you.
Yeah. You saw a guy with a terrible wig and a suit.
Yeah, you wore like his mask and everything, right?
Yeah, like they sent him down to Deep South, was the developmental I was in, and like he just taught me all of his stuff, and then all the guys hated me, like Kofi, and then hated everybody, like Mike Knox. There's like a crew of them. We did secret Kane trainings. It was all like this kayfabe thing. So like we would do this hard practice, so power plant style, Jody Hamilton, 500 squats, all this bumping. And then the cane practice crew had to stay behind and like just eating choke slams, tombstones, clotheslines off the top rope for like 2 hours. They were just getting murdered. I'm so sorry, guys. Once I start making more money, I'll buy you on the internet.
Just preparing for that.
Right, just for that. Yeah. So, and then it was just to promote the movement. It was like a month. We did the match. I went over for some reason and beat him with his own finish. And then the next night he just like beats the hell out of me overall and throws me out the door. And that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a trip down memory lane and an education for me. I didn't even realize that.
Were you hired?
15 years ago.
Were you hired specifically for that, or you got the job?
No, I got the job and I was doing like the deacon thing, but I was still really green. I got hired when I was 21. This was like they came up with it like 7 months into the game. They were like, "You're gonna be Kane. You're gonna work with him." I was like, "What? I can't do that yet."
Yeah.
And then they sent me on the road, so I would do developmental. And I go do house shows and I'd just be the freaking deacon. And I would just wrestle him. Like learn his kind of
And this was after Tough Enough, right?
Yeah, Tough Enough was 04.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so is that how they saw you? You did Tough Enough?
I got Johnny Ace's phone number when I did Tough Enough because I got eliminated like the second day. The first day I did great. The second day, the drawstring on my gym shorts. So I'm going through this hard obstacle course in Venice Beach. All the WWE agents, Fit Finley, Arn Anderson, Dean Malenko, Johnny Ace, all these dudes you look up to, you're trying to impress them. And go to Mont Woodland and pull my shorts up. So my shorts came down. You have to army crawl over this fake tripwire thing that's in sand. It's on Venice Beach. So my shorts are coming down. So I keep stopping and pulling them up. He said, if you pull those shorts up one more time, you're eliminated. I crawled out of the shorts and the underwear. And then you come out of the thing and you got 25 push-ups. So I'm just going into the sand. Terrible. It's like on the blooper of the DVD.
Is it really?
It's insane, yes. But that's how they saw me, and then of course they couldn't forget how funny that was.
Of course,
so that ended up helping me in the long run. But I got Johnny's card, and like you definitely shouldn't do. I called him every week, like, hey, what's up? It's Drew Hansen from Tough Enough. The kid his pants fell off. Anyway, you guys looking for a high young stud about 6'6"? I think he just would pop it up and do it.
Yeah.
And I'd send him my matches for the weekends. I was going up in Jersey, Carolinas, all over with Slam and stuff, and then one day they needed bodies for Deep South. I think he hired me, so I'd stop calling his phone. And it ended up working out.
Wow. Well, look, we're getting into the nitty-gritty of a lot of things, but we do need to take pause for internet station identification.
Oh, yes.
So we're going to take a brief break, and we're going to be right back here with more of the MCW Cast and the Big LG Doc Gallows.
We hope you're enjoying this week's episode of the MCW Cast. At MCW Pro Wrestling, much like many small businesses throughout the country, the pandemic has presented many challenges. For a company like ours that hosts events with live audiences, the impact has been even more severe, and all of our forms of revenue have been cut off. In order to continue to engage with our fans on a regular basis, we made the decision to begin to produce the MCW Cast, and are providing it for absolutely no cost on Facebook Live, Twitch, YouTube, and SoundCloud. If you'd like to support us during these challenging times, you can do so in several ways. The most popular way is to buy us a coffee to help fuel the cast. Just go to buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast, and for just $3, you can buy the cast a coffee, or you can choose to become a member of the cast for just $5 a month and receive several special perks. That's buymeacoffee.com/MCWcast. You can also contribute directly on Cash App, MCW Wrestling, or on Venmo, MCW-Wrestling. You can also show your support for the MCW Cast while sporting some great gear by going to teespring.com/stores/MCWcast to pick up a full line of official MCW Cast merchandise, from coffee mugs and face coverings to t-shirts and sweatshirts. Also, don't forget to comment in the threads on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch to get your questions answered on a future episode. And you can also send us a tweet using the hashtag AskMCWCast. Thank you for your support, and now, back to the show.
All right, and we are back here live from Celeb Fest 2. Thank you for joining us. I wanted to point out, we didn't talk about it first at the beginning of the hour, but we are here with a live audience, which we don't usually do. We're usually in studio, and we do have our VIP people who came today to check out Celeb Fest. So I want to say thank you for joining us here live.
Thanks,
and
everyone.
we appreciate that. And we appreciate your support. And of course, if you're listening to the podcast, you are checking that out on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Radio Public, Castbox, and of course, YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. So thank you for that. Okay. I got all the business out of the way.
If you love
I'm good.
this podcast, which I know you're going to, and you can't get enough of my amazing stories, every Sunday morning, wherever you listen to podcasts, a brand new Talking Shop will drop with myself, Rocky Romero, and the Machine Gun, Karl Anderson. It is not a PG podcast, but we are having a good time, so please tune in.
Hey, speaking of your partner, at what point did you and Karl hook up?
So I was in TNA, old school TNA at the time, doing the Aces and Eights deal. And I signed a 1-year deal with an option on it. The option was for a raise, and I got in a fight with the office because they're like, we want to keep you. I was going to move me into singles, and they had some cool ideas, but they didn't want to give me the raise. So we started butting heads about that. I'm like, it's what it says. You guys have to do it. So I heard there was an opening in New Japan. So actually, Scott D'Amore, who's my boss now, was my agent for the New Japan deal. And I started talking to them. I met Karl like twice. Everybody's like, you guys are going to love each other if you're ever together. And it's funny to hear him tell the story because he was getting ready for a big singles run there. And they brought me in, put us in the tag league together, and he's like, what the hell, man? Like, I was about to get my big push, but then we clicked immediately, and then they changed the finish. We won the whole tournament, and then we came back. In my second tour, we won the IWGP Tag Team titles in the Tokyo Dome, and then Bullet Club was like off and running from there. So
Right.
It was like a Step Brothers moment. Like we did the first match in Corkin Hall. We had a really cool match. We got done. Gato the Booker loved it. He's like, hey man, you like Mexican food? I was like, yeah. You like beer? Yeah. You come to my sponsor? Yeah. It's like 3 hours later, we looked at each other like, did we just become best friends? You want to do karate in the garage? Because I'm in.
Start rearranging your furniture so you have more room for
Should we make book
activities.
bags?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, interesting. So you guys got together with a Bullet Club because I wasn't following.
Yeah, so they formed it, I guess. It was Finn Balor, Tama Tonga, Alec Fale, Karl Anderson, like in whatever, July of that year. Then the Young Bucks came in October, they joined in October, then I came in November, I joined in November. Then it started really blowing up. And then I guess maybe a year later, AJ was leaving TNA and Finn was wanting to go to WWE. So those guys didn't really know AJ, but I knew AJ he's a Georgia guy like I am now, and we did TNA together. I knew how awesome he was, obviously. Probably one of the best that ever do it, but also what a good dude he was. So, and he came over there, and I was like, listen, you guys are going to love this guy. He was a total team player, and then it just kept rolling from there.
Yeah, it was like I wasn't following the Japan stuff, but it was like all of a sudden, I think like you turn around and there's like Bullet Club in the mall, Bullet Club T-shirts in the mall, and it's like, man, what it was just all for something like that say wasn't on mainstream like WWE television to become.
It was really cool, and I think we realized that, not to cut you off, but the tours got longer because business really picked up for us. We were spending a lot of time. I was doing 35 weeks a year when I left out, and it was too much. That's why we ended up leaving all of us. But we were there on an off day, so we were in the Tokyo Dome Hotel, and they were going to get WrestleMania at the New Japan Dojo, which they just remodeled. It's a nice place. We're going to have a big meal for the boys. So we went over to hang out and watch it. We started seeing all these Bullet Club shirts in the crowd at WrestleMania. Because we're in Japan, so we're kind of closed off from it. We're like, oh, dude, this is a real thing. And then from there, the momentum picked up. And then I remember they put the shirt on Pro Wrestling Tees, and the website like immediately crashed because they sold so many shirts. And we're like, oh, now. Then when we would come home and do appearances and stuff, it was like, well, this is a new level that none of us had experienced to that point, So it was cool.
Yeah, and things just kind of took off from there.
Yeah, I remember I was working with ROH at the time, and they jumped all in on it. Before you knew it, it was a new Bullet Club version of the T-shirt coming out every month and selling out.
And it's funny because they still are. I mean, that shirt, the first one came out like 14 maybe, and I got one on right now. It's my own personal bootleg. You can get those at my table here at Baltimore Celeb Fest. Or MCW.
Oh, that's right. You know you made it when bootlegs are coming out.
You know? Well, everybody had a something collection.
Right, yeah.
Everywhere you went, every indie show, everybody had
everybody was doing it,
It's funny, too, because the skull thing, like, they did that off of a face paint I wore just one night. The guy came and they drew that. And then it was the shirt. I was like, damn, I'm glad I painted my face good one time out of about 150 that I didn't. And it gave birth to that cool design that I still see the movie.
Hey, I got a cool, something I kind of wanted to ask you about. Is it true that with Hangman Page getting inducted into the Elite, they really wanted to continue on with like you being Doc Gallows, like, the executioner kind of, and they wanted to keep that kind of theme going of like, Hangman Page or...
I don't know per se, but I can see that. We were already gone, and I saw he started doing it, but I also said at that time, like, they wanted me to bring a noose to the ring and stuff, and I'm like, guys, I don't know. And then they called him Hangman, and I was like, you guys got away from it, it was done. Then why are we doing this right now?
Yeah, I always...
But the culture's different there, the wrestling culture.
Yeah.
They like that. The top rope, getting
Well, that's old school. That's Memphis old school.
Exactly. I was just like, it's
a little problematic in this day and age.
It's 2014, guys. Maybe I carry a bat or something. I don't know.
Well, you've had certainly a lot of different gimmicks over the years. Like, do you have a favorite? Yeah, you do. Like, you've got a list a mile long. Like, what's your favorite?
Honestly, like now, it's more being me than ever. So, like, it happened in Japan where like they're not so character driven. Like everything we did there, like other than Blue Steel, we pretty much came up with on our own. And I think that's what Bullet Club did. They didn't script it promos, they didn't do any of that. So we would do like a fired up American style promo. It was really different there. And then if you could go and back it up in the ring, and rather respect the Japanese audience. But then, we started our podcast over there, and we started making these little movies that led to us making Talk and Chopper Mania after we left WWE this last time. And just like being able to show your real personality is cool. So that's my favorite. It took 19 years or however long it took to get there. Like, being able to be yourself is pretty cool. Just turning it up.
Yeah, I feel like I first got a taste of you with Vine. Remember Vine? The 6-second little videos?
That was our idea. We were going to make Vine cool again for about 3 months.
Yeah, well, for a while
we got cool again. But
for a while there, you had me glued to it. Who makes the best grilled cheese? Luke Gallows makes the best grilled cheese. I played it so many times over and over again.
That was my son and I.
Yeah.
Who makes the best grilled cheese? Daddy makes the best grilled cheese.
That's right.
Did you want to ask us?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to see, do we have any fans that have any questions for our guest? All right, come on up here, Dr. D.
The question is, can I have the light up Mickey James glasses?
Well, I just wanted to ask, when you were in WWE with Jesse, what happened to the Dalton?
The question is, why did they drop the Dalton name with Jesse and Festus? The Daltons were that was the last name of the Pig Farmer brothers, because we were going to be the Godwins with no word Godwin. So originally I was Justice Dalton. Then they changed it to Festus Dalton. Jesse and Festus Dalton. And there's one program that came out and really got overalls on and the whole like Henry and Phineas get up. Because we did like one loop like this and put it in there, and then after that they dropped the names Jesse and Festus. Which I always thought was a really funny. There are a lot of cool one-word wrestling names, but when you break up Jesse and Festus, it's kind of hard when you're coming down the aisle. Jesse. And then, like, right? Here is Sean. It's not a great gimmick. Sean.
Good question, Doc.
Anybody else?
Oh, here we go. Come on
There
in.
we go. Represent the GWC. Oh, there we go.
I like that.
Producer with a big run in, making the decision.
Thank you, John.
What would be your dream opponent? Yeah, you tell me that face yet.
Well, Sheena and I get this question a lot when we do media. I would love to have Karl and I wrestle the Rock and Roll Express in their prime on a stadium somewhere. And he always says Stone Cold and the Rock and WrestleMania for the payday, which I would not deny the payday. Because it would be good.
That'd be a pretty classic dream match right there. Any other questions from our VIPs? This is your opportunity to talk to Big LG Doc.
So along that same vein, has there been somebody that you've worked over the years that maybe you didn't think would be a great match and it turned out to be great, or they were just a blast to work
It's
with?
funny because I had a lot of matches like that when I was Festus, and a lot of it was because back then they were just teaching young and aggressive, so we were beating the hell out of each other a lot of the time. And wrestled Vladimir Kozlov, and I was green. He was really green. They were really pushing him because they wanted to have fun crushing on screen TV. If you go back and watch it, I mean, we were just hammering the crap out of each other the whole time, but it came off beautiful. I mean, it was really cool TV match. So that was one where I was like, oh, we'll see how this goes. And it was actually ended up being like one that I really liked and remember. So that's an example of what it is.
So they're kind of, I see you, like the Impact and AEW getting together, kind of an opportunity. It's, I guess, I think this is good for the wrestling industry.
Oh man, I think wouldn't you agree, Dan? Like I say this when we do these Impact evaluations. Think about it. There are more American professional wrestlers contracted and making a living, and a very good one, a lot of them, out of the professional wrestling business than there's been at any time in history.
Yeah,
and even when WCW was bloated, like, because you think about it, you got ROH, you got Impact, you got the massive AEW roster, the massive WWE roster, you got the NWA with contracted talent now, and then you see, like, it's cool to see wrestling getting hot again. You guys are going to fill this building up here tonight, put on a show with high quality performers that you're probably going to be faced with in a year or two. You're going to have to replace because they'll probably be moving on and get one of these opportunities. Right. That's the natural progression, and that's why, you know, unofficially you guys are a feeder to a lot of these big companies.
Yeah, I think what AEW, like, I guess, you know, Tony Khan kind of opened the door to it, where he's also allowing, like, talent to do. Now today there was several AEW people scheduled, but they had to pull because they had to change to the live Dynamite tonight. But for the most part, him allowing, like, his guys and girls that are on TV getting over and becoming stars to come do our shows and do other indie shows, it helps the whole wrestling community, you know, and it's something like WWE had cut off years ago. Like, going into the pandemic, there was a point me and Dennis would talk, where there's like, there's nobody, it's getting to a point where there's nobody we can get as stars to bring in to the shows, because Ring of Honor had tied people up, AEW was timed, and it was like AEW and WWE were
grabbing
everybody. And it was like, there's no one that we can get, and it's like, it's going to choke the indies out. Like, we're either going to have shows where we do the best that we can with our talent and the indie talent we can get, or it's going to end up choking a lot of indies out that may not be able to grow. Because it really is a promoter depend on that.
You do, and it ended up like the negative and the positive came out of it for the whole wrestling. And you gotta give so much credit to Tony too, like getting to be around him for the last almost year now and everything. He's such a fan of professional wrestling, and like he's like I am, like you guys sitting in the chairs, like he'll go, man, it would be super awesome if we could get this guy and then bring this guy who would never see together and have this dream match. You know what I mean? Like, who would have ever imagined two complete different genres of how we do this art form? That you're gonna see Chris Jericho wrestle Nick Gage on primetime television on TNT, but stuff like that makes it so cool and so different. Like when we first ran out and jumped the rail there, people were shocked to see, like, they knew that we weren't in WWE anymore. They knew we were over at Impact, and then, like, it's been cool. And there's been so much of that since we did it, and the influx of new talent, like you said, being able to bring these guys out to the regional shows and do stuff like we were talking about when I used to come to this show or go to Dick Haircut shows when I was like a young teenager. You could see King Kong Bundy on Superstars on Saturday morning. It was pre-tape, but then he's going to be in Kaiser, West Virginia tonight, and we can go see him for $10. It was amazing.
Yeah, and that was, you know, back in the late '90s when we were running, and WWE wasn't like that, because like the Headbangers, you know,
right? They were always doing Maryland Independence.
Yeah, because they were with us before they got signed, and we were tight with Glenn and Chaz, and then after they were tag team champions, and WWF tag team champions.
And they came over,
and did one or two of our shows, and Matt and Jeff Hardy, like once after they had signed, they continued to let them come do our stuff for a while. So, and then all of a sudden everything changed, and then it, you know.
And I did hear this. Drop anything here, but I mean, I know at one point there was a philosophy in WWE, which I hated hearing when I was working there, that they basically wanted to get rid of all the indies and have everything be self-produced through them. This was before AEW had officially launched, and that was kind of the plan. Like, they would try to buy, like, say, Ring of Honor, for example. I don't know if that's one of them. I know when they probably tried, but luckily these people held out and said no, and then AEW happens, and now we're seeing it's fruitful for everybody again, which is really important, because if it's a monopoly, we all know it's boring. It's not interesting to watch.
Yeah, and it's funny because me as a promoter, you could see it going in that direction where they were just trying to tighten the noose and contract anybody.
This is the lifeblood grassroots of what pro wrestling is. It has to have it. It needs it for its function. Where do you get people from?
It was like the minute, and Leo Rush, our kid, was a part of that when he got signed. He was just getting some buzz put on him.
Grab him.
Yeah, and boom. It's like as soon as they get a little bit of buzz on him,
let them develop.
Grab
them, and we'll make them the way we want them. We'll make them the way we want them. They're all going to be the same. It's like I remember when I first signed too. Like a couple years before that, like everybody that came out of OVW looked like they were ready to step on a bodybuilding stage. They all wore trunks. They all had the same haircut. It was just like it was like a meat factory. But there's nothing, something creative. Like Darby Allin would have never had a job.
I was just gonna say his
Darby
name.
Allin is. He would have never got a chance. So it's so good that'll change. It made wrestling better.
Yeah, or like a guy like Orange Cassidy with that kind of gimmick.
Like, never seen him get a chance on TV.
They can't, with the different promotions and the ability of indies to reach a global market through streaming sources now. You can have all kinds of different people. Like they don't all have to be, 6'6", sorry, but big muscle bound men. Exactly.
Right. There's 100 different, and that's another good point. Like you can stream anything you want from anywhere. Like I didn't realize how in-depth Fight TV was until I put my self-made backyard wrestling pay-per-view on there, and I got like the Fight Pass. I was like, dude, you can watch wrestling that's going on in China right now. You can watch wrestling that's in Africa right now. You can watch all this obscure stuff. You can see indies from around the country. I didn't know this guy was still working. Let me click on that. It's really cool because now we have access to all of it. And it's great for shows like this too because they'll live on forever. And as a promoter, you have that extra revenue stream, which helps build the business and keep it going and thriving. It's helped us at Mine in Georgia too.
So do we think that eventually, with the way things are going right now, like look at someone like Jon Moxley, he's the GCW champion right now.
Think about that.
Yeah,
that's what I mean.
Do you think WWE will eventually start to get back to those days of letting right? I don't think so.
I think, and hey, I got a lot of friends at WWE, and I'm glad that WWE exists because that's why a lot of us are fans. But they're going to do it their way, and that's going to be it. We just saw that with NXT. They killed their own model because the man in charge didn't like it anymore.
Yeah.
So overnight, went from black and gold to
I mean, a serious change.
Yeah,
I know. It's crazy. It's like we just signed those massive contracts, and then the pandemic hit, and they did all those cuts. But the reason the contracts got so huge to begin with was to fight off AEW, and it did not work. And even guys who got fired per se went there and got hotter, or that left on their own accord went there and got hotter.
Yeah,
it helped. It's good.
So, what do you see for a long, 5 years out, 10 years out, for WWE? Do you think they're going to lose that kind of stronghold they have on the business?
Who knows? Because WWE's like Ringling Brothers, right? They're like the face of what pro wrestling is, so they're always going to grab the cash out. I like Roman Reigns personally a lot. I was reading an interview he did today, and he was basically saying we're going to do it our way, and we want the casual fan, and I guess that they probably on the inside, even though you can say what you want, they feel the heat from it. But they feel like that everyone else who doesn't just watch them, we're this weird hardcore fan base. But I think what you're looking over is the fact that that weird hardcore fan base, all of us, are growing larger and larger and larger. And now you and I, who grew up fans as kids, we have an entertainment dollar and we want to spend it on wrestling. It doesn't just have to be what goes on. That's right. Say we have a choice. It's cool.
And me too. I'm a mid-40s wrestling fan that really I really haven't watched WWE in years. But I actually watch AEW. I watch Dynamite.
It's a fun show.
It is. It's captured my attention. I haven't watched wrestling in years.
And they're not. And I think it's cool too. They're not afraid to put some of these awesome veterans and legends on TV, because WWE has just this entertainment mentality, but I feel like wrestling has always been on the fringe of that anyway. They might say that some of those guys they look too old to be on TV, but to us as fans, we don't care about that. You're gonna bring on you're gonna bring on a 4 Horsemen and have them on television. I'm a huge fan. I think it's cool. It's the lineage of wrestling. It's the history of why we're all into it, why we follow it, and you're telling a story. You're coming back to something from 20 years before. Seeing a team like FTR that's a total throwback, and then always going, oh, that'd be cool if they had like Tully or something, and then they do it. That's cool.
And Tully's out there throwing shots.
Oh, that's what you
know, like
Tully's
whoa.
awesome.
And then you get a whole new crop of fans because you get the guys who watched that as kids, and then they bring their kids.
And then they hear Jake
you know,
Roberts got a promo, and they go, "Oh, just like we did when we were 8." You know?
Right.
Yeah, I think they're real good with taking those things and kind of inserting them in how they should be.
I do too.
You know, how they should be put in. They're picking their spots right.
It's good. It's been really good. Man. So let's just all hope the momentum continues for all of them. I think it's a great time in wrestling for fans and wrestlers.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's you definitely you can see that there's a tide.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure. For sure. You
good.
can feel it, and I felt like it was going to happen a little bit anyway when the world opened back up, and I feel like it's even more than people expected because you guys are excited to come see us. We're excited to come perform for you. Like everybody's been missing that void, so it's cool. It's a really good time right now. I just hope the pandemic dies off so I can go back to Japan and do it there.
I have a lot of like non-wrestling fans, and they've been watching Heels. Have you watched it?
Oh, I'm in heels.
Well, yes, I know, but I mean, you watched it like
Yeah.
watched
I
it
watched,
from like
I watched
after
the first 3 episodes, and then I haven't been home very much.
Yeah.
This crazy wrestling whirlwind we're in right now. So, but I'm gonna binge it one day and finish the whole thing because I liked it. It's different. I saw Ricky Morton last week. We were doing like a seminar tryout thing for Impact at his school. He was telling me how much he hated it because it's not our business, and I see his point to that. I also think it's pretty damn entertaining as well.
That's why I brought it up because my non-wrestling friends, like I'm a college professor, so I have people that are other college professors who don't watch wrestling who are watching this, and then they come to work and want to ask me about it, and I just think it's funny, like because they would have never turned on, you know, Monday night or Wednesday night TV or whatever, but they tune into this because of the entertainment, and they're like, "Is this that thing you do?" And I'm like, "Kind of, yeah." You know,
yeah, no, sort of, yeah. I mean, I think it's great. It just shows that more and more as the years pass by and as we feel this resurgence of pro wrestling or this new frontier, whatever we're moving into, we're crossing into mainstream. You see these top guys that are branching off and are becoming the biggest stars in movies in Hollywood, and you see shows about pro wrestling. Like, I thought it was really cool when Glow came back.
Yes.
It was on Netflix, and Chavo's a really good buddy of mine. He was doing all the wrestling stunt coordinating. It was just like, it's crossing over, which is cool. It's
really sad they didn't bring it back.
It's not just the like little stepchild that nobody talks to anymore in the entertainment world. It's got a place. I mean, you look at guys like The Rock and John Cena, and I mean, they started trailblazing all that, but now this resurgence of pro wrestling, I think you're just going to see more and more of it. So it's cool that we're part of the conversation.
Real quick, if I can just follow up on that, I know we don't have that much time, but Dan mentioned he hadn't really been watching a lot of WWE, and one of the things that I told him that it would behoove him to watch was the cinematic Undertaker AJ Styles match. I told him at that year's WrestleMania that was probably for me the most entertaining part, and also your cameo, you and Machine Gun Cuz cameo in that when you kind of ambushed them.
You mean whenever I was in the main event of WrestleMania and got fired 11 days later? Thanks for bringing it up. No. Yeah, it was really interesting. I think Matt Hardy did the cinematic deal first.
Yes.
And killed it because we all watched it the first time. Like, what was that? When I watched it again, I went, that was cool. When I watched it the third time, I went, this is awesome! I don't know what I just saw. And then the pandemic had a lot of the cinematic stuff, but that took 11 hours to shoot that match because his arm gets busted real early on that limousine. That was real on the hearse. And he's old school, so they would pack it with gauze and they would hold on to it for a couple minutes. We'd go back and start shooting it, start gushing again, stop. I mean, it took all night to do that.
That was where I was going. Was how long did that whole ordeal?
It took about 10 and a half hours or something. Wow. I mean, it was a pretty grueling night. I mean, those guys were going, and they had to. It's like shooting a movie, but it's live action because it's wrestling. You're getting hit, you're falling through stuff, and then, all right, we got to shoot that again from a different angle. Dude, this dude's just crashed through a wall. Now we got to build another wall. Here we go. Clean his arm up. Wham!
It's funny that you said that about Matt, about how you watched it a couple times, because that's the same way I processed it when Matt stuff. Like the first time I saw it, I was like, and I was like, literally like, let me watch that again.
Yeah, we have
but
such
it was exactly like that for me too, where after a couple times, and I was like, this is so good.
Yeah, so we were in, I'll never forget when I saw it the first time. We were in Sumo Hall, Ryogoku in Japan, working for WWE, and we put it up on someone's laptop, and we were watching it. What? And Karl turns to me and goes, oh, dude, I think Matt Hardy fell off the wagon again. Right? And then after we watched it on the bus, I go, I think he's a genius. It's amazing.
And from our standpoint here, when all that was happening, then when Matt had reached out to me, like I was trying to book him and Jeff, and he said, "Hey man, listen, we're doing this thing where, we can, we're going around and like winning tag titles." He said, I'd like MCW to be a part of this. Like, I'd like to get you a rub, and I was like, well, cool. And I was like, well, let's work it out. And it was because of that I had started to pay attention to like, look at these matches. And then we got the deal lined up, and then Matt and Jeff came in and they won the MCW tag titles. They teleported.
Yeah.
Right. And, but the thing was, it's I've never had like anticipation and buzz for a show like with them. It's the only show where we had to turn away like 200 people.
That's awesome.
We had like 1,400 people. The police officers that work for like Hartford County, they basically had said, you have to stop letting people in. Like it was, we had like 1,400 people up in an MCW arena, a couple hundred, like Dennis, we gotta stop. We can't let any more people in the booth. And it was like, holy crap, man! Like it was a buzz. You know what I mean? It's just the buzz that they had. The Hardy Boys were always over through, but on that when that was going on, we did the deal and they won the.
Well, Matt Hardy being a wrestler genius.
Oh, he really
adapting
did,
again. Like, man, so the biggest crime out of all that for us as fans was the fact that Vince McMahon didn't understand.
Didn't understand it.
I remember, like, we knew it was the Hardys because my buddies with Matt and Jeff, and they told us, but WWE even kayfabe us to the day of WrestleMania. And they take us to this building outside the performance center. We go in a warehouse. They shut the doors. There's a guard. And I'm like, guys, like, nobody's out here for one. The garage door opens. We're all in there talking about this ladder match, and they pull like a black Suburban with blacked out windows. And Mark Brunner goes, and the fourth game. Matt and Jeff, the Hardy Boys, why are you doing a presentation for us? But I remember right away, we were like, everybody wanted to do that stuff because we knew it would be the most simple thing. It was like, oh, Vince just doesn't understand it. He didn't want him to do it. It was like, and then you watch that match. First you hear that was one of the coolest pops ever. Was standing there with their music because everybody knew.
I've said that. Yeah, I was there.
Dude,
I did over there.
Karl, I was like, look around. It's really nice. And they wanted it the whole time. Then we're going around, and we went to England with them shortly thereafter, and we stayed married to them because we just dropped the titles. And that's all they wanted every night was that. And they got us so over. And then the agent reports every night, you can't be doing that. I'm like, why would we not let them do this? Obviously, they're not.
And it was all Vince just didn't understand.
I guess he just didn't understand it for whatever reason. Yeah, I thought that was a shame.
It was. Like at that point, because it was white hot, man.
It was. And if you're listening and you enjoyed the Boneyard match, you should buy Talking Shop Mania and watch the Boneyard match. Sex Ferguson versus Chad Chumack spoofed the fact that we got fired 11 days after the WrestleMania meeting, and we built a graveyard in my own yard, bought a hearse, all kinds of other things, and we had our own version of the Boneyard.
The Boneyard.
And you can buy it on Fight TV. It lives forever.
I can only imagine what the set pieces look like for that.
Buddy, don't watch it with your kids. That's what I'm saying.
All right, well, it looks like we're out of time. We got to get this wrapped up because we got to get
go sell these gimmicks.
event. Right. We got to get Big LG's got to get to the gimmick table.
Hey guys, thanks a lot. Please keep supporting MCW. Please keep supporting Maryland wrestling and wrestlers, and most of all, like wrestling, enjoy it for what it is. Watch wherever you want, but keep watching pro wrestling. Thanks very much.
For everyone here at MCW, we'll see you next week for another edition of the MCW Cast.